I recorded this video on my phone and I forgot that my phone does not have a lot of space. So let's start again. I have told this story before on my other account. I keep mentioning I got a community strike for talking about Charlie Kirk, so I'm trying now to create a backup account just in case TikTok decides to do anything with that account with future videos. Okay, so Ricky Sicky says, come get your passport, girl. By law, you are Jamaican for 4 generations. So your grandchildren have a legitimate claim. I believe that was the last part of the comment. I'm sorry, I forgot it cut off. Yes, that's what you said. Yes. Okay, so I probably will not be getting my Jamaican citizenship. To be honest with you, prior to last year, that wasn't even a thought in my mind. I was very much rejecting of my Jamaican heritage and identity because, you know, people got in my face when I was very young to let me know I wasn't really a Jamaican. However, at this point, I don't think there's a possibility for me to get my Jamaican heritage by descent. So the TLDR of the situation is that my grandmother died October of last year. My grandfather died March of this year. I know that's a bit of a trauma dump, but their deaths are very much related to this situation. So my father let me know in August that my grandmother was passing away of cancer. And I was a bit upset about that because, not at him, at myself, because I hadn't had a relationship with her. And that wasn't completely my fault. My parents isolated me and my brother from the rest of the family because my grandparents did not approve of her as the chosen wife. And so because of that, they basically turned the whole family against my mom. And so because the two of them wanted to love each other and stay together, they decided they were going to come to Canada and they were going to just ice out everybody else who lived on the island. And so I saw my grandparents maybe about 5 or 6 times in my life, throughout my life. But we never really built a relationship. And I would notice that with my parents specifically, whenever I would reach out to family members, if anything I said was not approved via them to say to family members, they would get really upset with me. Now, I'm not going to lie, in the past, I've been a bit of a blabbermouth and I just say whatever. But in more recent times, last five or so years, I've been very careful when I speak with relatives to only talk about myself, to only talk about my name change, the fact that I've moved out on my own, the fact that I've kind of living my own life. And even just me giving them details about my personal life gets me in a lot of hot water with my parents. And so for a long time, I haven't reached out to any family members. And so if any of them see this, I apologize. I would have loved to have family and no family, but every time I talk to family and news gets back to my parents, it's World War III with us. And so I just don't have time to keep arguing with my parents. So I just didn't connect with anybody. And honestly, my grandmother and my grandfather, they weren't the best people. I've talked about that before and I won't get into it right now, but yeah. So I just said, you know what, let me just stay away. And then, so I said to myself, you know what, she's dying of cancer. I would love to find a way to say goodbye. And so I decided to write her a letter and I sent it to her. And it got to her the day before she passed, and my grandfather read it to her. And my grandfather decided to call my dad and complain about the letter that I wrote. And then my father called me. And so my father decided to basically ask me a lot of questions. He was very polite, but I still think there was a lot of heat and anger behind his words, even if he didn't necessarily communicate it in his demeanor. He basically politely asked me why I sent her a letter and if my intention was to embarrass him or to sabotage his trip back home to see her for the last time. And because it seems like from his point of view that I was just trying to humiliate him and embarrass him and mess up his trip back home. And I said that wasn't my intention. I wanted to write a goodbye letter to my grandmother. And, you know, I had a lot of thoughts after the call that we had with each other. And I essentially just sent him an email and said, look, I'm not coming back to your church. If you're going to basically be accusing me of trying to sabotage you, why am I coming to your church and participating in all the stuff that's happening with your church? I'm a pastor's kid. So, ever since then, ever since October of last year, I was kind of just messaging them just in general, just when it was a big holiday, like Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Anniversary, things like that, right? And then after that, I ended up my dad texted me in March to let me know my grandfather passed away. So I had started to call my grandfather because he started to tell my dad that, you know, he hadn't heard from us and he wanted to talk to us and da 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 da. So I said, okay, cool, I'll call him. And I was calling him like every holiday that we had in Canada. And then my dad let me know about February or so that he was hospitalized, and then by March he passed away. And so then I expressed my condolences to my dad, and I said to him, well, what are you going to do with regards to the funeral? And he told me that the funeral was going to be in May. So I said, okay, cool. And then in April, I followed up with my dad again to ask about what's happening with the funeral because I hadn't heard anything. And so then he basically let me know, they're still finalizing details. He doesn't have a live stream link yet, but he'll give it to me when it's ready. And I thought, live stream link? What do you mean live stream link? And then essentially the TLDR is that I asked him, I said, well, was my grandmother's funeral live streamed? He's like, there was silence. And then he comes back and says, yes, it was. I don't know if the link is still active, but here's the link to her funeral. Mind you, she died in October. Her funeral was November. We were in April of this year. We were in April of this year. And I found out like 5 months after she died that there was apparently a live stream link to her funeral. And so I ended up asking him via email. I was like, why is it that you had a link to my grandma's funeral and you didn't think you needed to send me that? Why is it that you thought that that wasn't important enough to send to me? And I said something to the effect of, you know, in my view, it seems like information was withheld from me for the purposes of being spiteful. Why did I say that? Oh my God, it's like I lit a powder keg. I emailed my dad, but my mom obviously had access to his email and decided to jump into the email and start cussing me out. Nastily cussing me out, telling me that I better not accuse her husband of anything and I'm not a nice person and da-da-da-da-da. And I've been so rude and they owe me nothing and da-da-da. The TLDR of it all is that they basically said that if I want to be a part of the family, I either need to be all in or all out. I can't choose to be half in, half out. And if I choose that, then they are not entitled to give me any information about the family. So if anybody gets married, if anybody has a child, if anybody gets divorced, if anybody dies, I don't get to learn about that because I'm not bosom buddies with my parents. And so at that point I blocked them because I said, I'm not doing this with you. You think you've done nothing wrong and you refuse to see things from my point of view. And we're not making any kind of headway. And the only way we're going to make headway is if I apologize and pretend like everything's great. And I'm not going to do that anymore. And so I blocked them. And then I started connecting with the church that live streamed my grandma's funeral to ask them about my grandfather's funeral details. And at first they were very cooperative with me. And then after a while, they started to basically stonewall me and direct me back to my dad for any information. Trying to talk fast because time's going so fast. But anyway, so TLDR, I did not connect with my dad. I let the church know. I said, hey, I found the link on my own. I'm good. Day of the funeral comes. I'm trying to watch the live stream. All of a sudden there's technical difficulties and the live stream doesn't go live. So I've never seen my grandfather's funeral. And I tried messaging them on YouTube about it. They kept deleting all my comments. I then decided to email them, and then they basically emailed me back letting me know that the funeral was not recorded. So now I've never seen my grandfather's funeral. And the reality is the only way I would be able to get my passport or my citizenship is for me to make nice with my parents. And to be honest with you, this whole situation has created so much bad blood between us that I'm not willing to mend the fences just for a passport that I may never use. So I won't be getting my Jamaican citizenship anytime soon. Yeah, so that's essentially the story. Me and my grandkids will have to miss out. I don't know.